Hello, beautiful souls. Today's video is all about love, connection, and the little things that make relationships bloom. Joseph and Emily's bond was so tight that the idea of separation never crossed Joseph's mind. Their connection ran so deep that a mere glance could convey their thoughts. Emily hailed from a well-off background, while Joseph's upbringing was modest, raised solely by his mother with little material wealth. However, this contrast didn't register much when they were kids. Emily was surrounded by an array of toys and elegant garments. She would treat Joseph to candies that he had never even glimpsed in regular stores. In return, Joseph would pour his heart into crafting gifts for Emily. He'd fashion intricate cardboard dollhouses and meticulously carve wooden doll furniture. Among Emily's cherished qualities about Joseph was his unparalleled ability to uplift her spirits. He perpetually exuded unwavering enthusiasm and never grew disheartened or bored. As the years went by, Emily's expectations grew, but this didn't dampen their joyful moments together, oblivious to the ticking clock. Joseph began attempting to take Emily out for movies or cafe outings. Yet, such excursions were infrequent due to his financial limitations, confined to spending only what he earned in his sparse free hours, sandwiched between his academic commitments. There were instances when Joseph contemplated abandoning his studies to work and contribute more financially, but Emily vehemently insisted that he complete his education, pursue college, and secure a solid profession. Joseph was prepared to move mountains for his beloved, vowing to attain a stellar education. Despite this, he continued to dedicate himself industriously during his available moments, striving to strike a balance between his studies and work. Joseph excelled as a student, effortlessly securing a college admission and even a scholarship. However, despite their joint preparation, Emily couldn't gain entry independently. Yet, her father's influence and financial resources smoothed the way, leading Emily to become a student, albeit not at her preferred institution. Thus, their journeys in student life commenced. Joseph and Emily remained inseparable. Joseph played a pivotal role in assisting her with essays and coursework, or, to be candid, shouldering most of the workload himself. It proved more convenient, for Emily's true desire for college was rather lukewarm. Higher education held more of a status appeal for her than genuine enthusiasm. By his third college year, Joseph made a resolute decision and proposed to Emily. Unexpectedly and joyfully, Emily didn't decline, although she didn't exactly agree either. Her response was a blend of warmth and practicality. She held Joseph dear and treasured their friendship, but emphasized the necessity of completing their studies and securing stable employment first, especially for him, as she believed it was a man's responsibility to provide for his family. She expressed that the prospect of marriage could be entertained once these prerequisites were fulfilled, urging Joseph not to take offense but to view this as a significant and mature step. And, she pointed out, a lavish wedding was also on her radar, so it was indeed premature to delve into wedding plans without sufficient savings. Though stung by Emily's response, Joseph chose to suppress his disappointment, silently swallowing any lingering resentment. He resolved to ensure that his efforts would eventually garner a positive response from Emily, recognizing the gravity of her concerns. Throughout college, Joseph found himself frequently working nights, struggling to remain alert during daytime classes. Often, he would race home for a quick lunch, only to succumb to a few hours of unintentional slumber. Afterward, he'd shoulder not only his responsibilities but also Emily's share of chores. Evenings were primarily reserved for Emily, as time slipped by, ushering them into their senior year. Joseph's hours were consumed by the composition of papers, catering to both his academic needs and those of Emily. This relentless schedule left no room for amorous interludes. Engrossed in books and notes, Joseph was averse to leisure, while Emily reveled in her social circle's enjoyment. One twilight, Joseph made a departure from his books and equations, urging Emily to join him for a stroll through the city. Their pace was unhurried as they ambled through the venerable park and the meandering alleys. An unusual silence enveloped Joseph, possibly a manifestation of fatigue's grip. You've become rather dull, Emily voiced her dissatisfaction. I'd be just as uninspiring if I had to draft 2 theses and manage your daily tasks. Emily's words held an undercurrent of irritation, her temper flaring as she defensively declared that it couldn't be as arduous as he portrayed. Joseph maintained his silence, opting not to engage in a dispute. As the young pair neared the exit, Joseph's attention was snagged by a woman seated on a bench beneath an ancient oak, draped in ragged attire. Her bowed head conveyed desolation, and beside her rested a box labeled, "Assistance for Daughter's Treatment." The woman's entire demeanor radiated profound sorrow, and an unexpected wave of empathy enveloped Joseph. His thoughts turned to his own mother, and he comprehended that no one was immune to such misfortune in this unpredictable world. From his pocket, he extracted a handful of substantial bills, recently acquired from his employer, and deposited them into the collection box. With sad, teary eyes, the woman gazed up at him and murmured in a soft, grateful tone, "Thank you, may God bless you." Joseph could feel his heartbeat intensify, his compassion for the woman deepening. After putting some distance between themselves and the woman, Emily halted abruptly, fixing her gaze upon Joseph. "Are you out of your mind? Why would you give that beggar so much money? Is your wealth inexhaustible? You should be saving for our wedding instead of squandering your money like that. Emily, what are you doing? She's in need, and anyone could find themselves in her shoes." "No, not just anyone, only those who deserve it. I'm pretty sure she fabricated that story about her sick daughter to elicit sympathy and attention." Joseph observed his friend, suddenly grasping the magnitude of her anger and distrust. "Emily, people require assistance. Today, we provide it. Tomorrow, someone might help us. If she deceived us, that's her burden to bear. And my conscience remains clear. Do you comprehend?" But Emily remained steadfast in her perspective. "No, I don't understand. We don't require assistance, and we never will. Each person must fend for themselves, and you're squandering money needlessly. If you keep throwing your money around like this, you'll never be able to provide us with a respectable life. Emily, please don't overreact. I won't end up destitute because of this act of kindness, and this woman truly needs the help." Joseph attempted to justify his actions. However, Emily's response only escalated into louder shouts, accusing Joseph of recklessness and a lack of responsibility toward their future. With each passing moment, Joseph's spirit grew more disheartened. A sudden realization dawned on him: he didn't truly know the real Emily. Observing her in this light, it struck him that their compatibility might be an unattainable goal. Slowly, he began to distance himself. Emily grabbed at his sleeve, astounded by his non-compliance. "We haven't talked this through yet. Just promise me that you won't repeat this. There are countless beggars in the world. You can't save them all. You need to understand that I'm accustomed to a certain standard of living. If you can't provide us with a decent life, we might have to part ways. Do you comprehend?" Joseph turned abruptly and affirmed his understanding. With those words, their connection was severed indefinitely. Emily struggled to process what she was hearing. "No, what are you saying? You can't just leave me like this. What about the thesis?" "The thesis? No. You'll have to manage it on your own, to prevent such dreadful thoughts from clouding your mind. I wish you the best. Goodbye." With those uttered farewells, Joseph withdrew his hand and hastened his stride. Emily called out after him, but her cries went unheard. The subsequent day, Joseph found himself once more traversing the park, only to discover the woman seated in the very same spot. Quieting his steps, Joseph settled beside her and softly inquired about her daughter's well-being. The woman's countenance bore a heavy burden of sorrow as she began to speak, her voice tinged with sadness. "I raised Rachel all by myself. It came to light that her father was already married, and upon learning of my pregnancy, he abandoned us without a trace. My job prospects were never promising, and my income remained meager. Despite this, my daughter, Rachel, grew into a bright young woman, excelling in school and earning admission to college. Witnessing my struggles, Rachel began seeking part-time work during her high school years to alleviate our financial strain. Then a recent tragedy struck. She was working a part-time cleaning job and slipped on a flight of stairs while returning from an apartment. Rachel suffered a terribly unfortunate fall, resulting in a severe spinal injury. The local hospital's treatment proved ineffective, but after extensive research, I found a specialized clinic that held promise for her condition. Upon reviewing her medical records, the doctors at the clinic expressed optimism. Unfortunately, our insurance barely covered a fraction of the operation's cost. I reached out to every conceivable foundation and implored those with a caring heart to assist. Though such individuals are few and far between in our surroundings, the woman concluded, her words punctuated by tears. Joseph learned the address of the hospital and pledged his help. Mustering all the savings he had set aside for his forthcoming wedding and future with Emily, he made his way to the hospital. There, he financed the operation and subsequently visited Rachel in her room. The moment he crossed the threshold, he recognized her, a fellow student from a parallel class. Although he couldn't recall her name, a memory stirred, of her standing behind him in the cafeteria line, when he had realized he had left his wallet behind. Sensing the unease of the moment, Joseph found himself uncertain about how to proceed. The girl silently extended the money and offered a smile. Joseph attempted to decline, but the young woman remained insistent. He promised to reimburse her, though destiny didn't align for them to cross paths again after that day. Subsequently, Joseph and Rachel engaged in conversation for a while before he departed. The subsequent day, he reached out to the student council, seeking their assistance in orchestrating a fundraiser for Rachel's treatment. Through collective effort, they successfully gathered the remaining funds required. In due course, Rachel underwent the long-awaited surgery. Joseph's visits became a daily ritual, and once she was discharged, they continued their companionship at her residence. Still in a state of convalescence, Rachel's strength was yet to fully return, confining her mostly to her home or the rehabilitation center. On a particular day, the doorbell rang, and a stranger in a business suit stood on the threshold. "Your father instructed me to find you. He passed away 3 months ago, leaving everything to you." Her father had left his second daughter a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Though the reasons for this turn of events remained unknown, Rachel was now entitled to her rightful inheritance. As time progressed, Rachel's physical capabilities gradually improved, with Joseph offering his unwavering support. On a day marked by an especially taxing walk, they decided to treat themselves to a visit to a local cafe. To Joseph's astonishment, Emily was stationed behind the bar, her expression partially concealed. "I can't believe you're working here," Joseph remarked, devoid of anger or condescension. Emily's voice was strained as she responded, "Father left a will for his illegitimate daughter, leaving us with nothing." Joseph's surprise was palpable, and all he could manage to say was that life had a way of arranging things and offering Emily a chance to forge a more meaningful path. His attention shifted abruptly when he realized that Rachel had stepped outside. He hastened after her, enveloping her in a gentle embrace, wiping the tears from her cheeks. "Darling, don't let it distress you so much. We can enjoy our coffee elsewhere." Rachel gazed at him, her smile carrying a tinge of melancholy. She hadn't intended to cause harm to anyone, particularly her half-sister. Nevertheless, life bestowed an unforeseen surprise upon her in the form of Joseph and her father's remorse, as expressed in his will. That's the end of my story. I hope it has inspired you, entertained you, or made you think. If you want to hear more stories from me, be sure to click the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when I upload a new video. And let me know what you think of this story in the comments section. I love to read your opinions and suggestions. Until then, stay awesome.